drugs in it. We're attacking that across the federal government with HSI, but also with our state and local partners. Every time they make a drug seizure locally in Cochise County, for instance, we want to know how that got there because we want to be able to take action to prevent it the next time.
Governor Ducey, what are you seeing in terms of the counter narcotics, in terms of the issues of drugs crossing the border? What impact is it having on your state?
Well, as a border governor in a border state, these are things we deal with every day, and we've long seen it as public safety. And to hear the president talk about it as border security being national security is something that has broad support in the state of Arizona, and I believe even when you get out of the state of Arizona. When this is not a partisan issue inside our state. So when we talk about stopping methamphetamine, and we all know about the opioid addiction epidemic that we have inside our country, and we've lost over 900 Arizonans to that in the last year. But that has also brought a spike in heroin, and it has brought a spike in fentanyl and synthetic drugs. There's much of what's going on in Arizona that I'm proud of. I'm not proud that these dangerous drugs are coming across the southern border, not only to be distributed in the state of Arizona, but across the country. And I think so much of this talk of abolishing ICE or of talking about these brave men and women in our federal agencies or in law enforcement that wear a badge deserve our gratitude and support. We talked about a surge of badges to the border. That was when we deployed the National Guard, and that's happened in New Mexico, Texas, and California as well. There has been a spike in us actually interdicting dangerous drugs at the port because the border agents can be forward-facing and on offense rather than on defense. So we're hoping to see those numbers go in the right direction, but this is something that should concern every local law enforcement person and every citizen across the country.
Thank you. Ron, can you walk us through the counter-drug mission in terms of what it looks like in the interior? Obviously, Kevin addressed the border. From a border perspective, what does it look like from the interior?
So ICE, the Homeland Security Investigations group inside of ICE is dedicated to longer-term investigations to attack these cartels, how they're financed, how their business models work, where they're resident overseas, what kind of things they bring to the country. And so they use these investigative skills in undercover operations, wiretaps, if you will, Title III investigations, working as part of task forces in state, local, and other federal departments, but also maintaining task forces in the border environment as well as the interior, and using our specific skill set to work inside the dark web to see how these folks are communicating with each other and how they're importing things. The commissioner mentioned this cross-border traffic, like trying to figure out when these seizures are made, how we can contribute, how these investigations can be led and fed by something that may occur in the interior, but then we can trace it back to its origin. We also have a significant footprint overseas, having attaché offices that can work with local governments to vet and employ task forces in the overseas environment to understand the criminal networks as they exist overseas.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and thank Governor Ducey on the National Guard support. Over 450 Arizona National Guard members helping us every day on the border, 1,600 border-wide. We've made 15,000 arrests with National Guard support, 14,000 pounds of narcotics seized, and you've put hundreds of agents back on the line. So I just wanted to thank you personally for that tremendous support and for the administration support in letting us mount that operation.
Thank you. Arizona's honored to do it, and there have been many other governors across the country that have called it into us and the other border governors and offered their support as well. Like I said, not a partisan issue, a public safety issue, a issue of border security.
Including Alabama.
Well, we are facing a crisis in terms of the drug trade. And Sheriff, what is your experience in working with CBP and working with the federal officials to ensure that you're tackling this drug trade in Arizona?
Well, after 3 decades of watching the border evolve from the good, the bad, and the ugly again, it's nice to finally see that, and this is going to be a success story when it comes to what's going on the border. And that's based on our collaborative trust with our governor, with our local law enforcement, fellow sheriffs, our troopers in Arizona, and our federal partners all throughout. We have stood up a task force down there, supported by our governor, supported by the National Guard. We have 10 National Guard folks assigned to the sheriff's office on the border. We get about 4,000 picks a week in my county alone. Not all drug related, but there's a percentage that is. We have made a huge difference in Cochise County. I think it needs to be heard today and talked about. We have 100% conviction rate if you're smuggling in Cochise County. On our virtual camera system alone, which is over 300 deployed within Cochise County, to add on and complement what the federal government's already done, we have a 68.9% apprehension rate. So if we see you, there's almost 70% chance we're going to get you. And then what the federal government chooses or can't prosecute, we prosecute them. So that's a partnership that works. It's a partnership that's working not just for Cochise County, not just for the state of Arizona, but for all you sitting in the room, because there's not a sheriff or a police chief that's sitting in this room that doesn't have a drug epidemic going on. And I have to say this too, on this one question about sanctuary cities that our Attorney General spoke about. When these, and I'm going to be kind of blunt and probably spoke about it later in media, these failed leaders from state and local communities that say, it's okay to come to my community and break the law. The Constitution is the backbone of what we do in this country. And to tell them to get through that front border, that front line, you're endangering the brave men and women from local, state, and federal law enforcement, because they'll do whatever it takes to get through our front efforts to get to these sanctuary cities. Shame on these leaders that are doing that. And thank you to a president, Secretary Nielsen, and all the other, this administration, and all the sheriffs and police chiefs out there saying, this is wrong. So.
Thank you. Senator David Perdue, what, in your mind, when you hear these critics basically talk about abolishing ICE, I mean, what message do you want to send to them?
I just don't know how to respond to that. I mean, this is the United States of America. That's like saying I want to get rid of the Marines. I mean, I can't relate to that. That somebody in an elected position would actually voice that as an intellectual position. I mean, I just don't understand. If anybody's read the Constitution, it's very plain about what our responsibility is. That's provide for national defense, and that means security at the border. And I'd like to go back to what the sheriff just said and what we've seen happen in Alabama. I mean, I think the cases that this Attorney General's brought are fantastic in terms of standing up for the Constitution. But, you know, I met Kate Steinley's father a couple years ago. And when you see a senseless murder like that could have been prevented, and any one of you in uniform can give us dozens of examples like that, when are we going to talk about the victims of this senseless crime and the victims of this drug commerce that's being perpetrated on the United States? I mean, this is when somebody, I think, fails their oath of office when they say they want to get rid of ICE or the CBP. I mean, I just think it's unconscionable, and frankly, I think it's downright unpatriotic and treasonous.
Attorney General, I'd like to ask you the same question. In terms of these critics who are calling out their abolish ICE, what are your thoughts on that?
Can I just say amen to what the senator just said? No, I think it speaks volumes to somebody's perception of what it is that these fine men and women do. You know, we've talked a little bit about the front end side of law enforcement where many tons have been stopped at the border. But what you also don't see is what happens on the back end. Is that I've been a prosecutor for 20 years, and at one point in time I did some statistics for us. I was in an area in Alabama known as Meth Mountain. By the way, not a great moniker that you want, but yet over 70% of our drug traffickers were in this country illegally, 70%, which meant that when they were arrested, local law enforcement had the opportunity to contact ICE for a detainer to make sure that those individuals were going to stay until we had the opportunity for them to be sent to trial. The other thing that it gave us the opportunity to do is to work with additional federal partners to see whether or not those individuals could be prosecuted federally rather than the state level. One of the things that you hear from federal prosecutors, they typically don't have the opportunity to issue a complaint, that their process takes a little bit longer. And by the use of ICE's authority for a detainer, through the work of local law enforcement, many times we were able to capture those bad apples that were the worst of the worst for us to make sure that not only do we have the chance to fully prosecute them, but also prosecute in the venue in which we were going to make the most difference. And so those that would criticize ICE, those that would believe that we want to be able to abolish one of the most effective law enforcement mechanisms that I know out there, clearly don't understand what you do and don't have an appreciation, as the sheriff talked about, the danger that you've placed yourself in so that I and others could be safe, and we're grateful for that.
Thank you. I want to move on to securing the border. Obviously, for President Trump, this is a top priority in ensuring that we're able to have border security in protecting our homeland as well. Commissioner, I want to start with you. Obviously, you're seeing the everyday challenges at the border. Give us your insight as to what the men and women are facing at the border when it comes to dealing with border security.
Sure. Yeah, we've had a chance to talk a little bit about the flows between ports of entry illegally, the narcotics flows. We also have on that southwest border, as I think the senator alluded to, over 500,000 lawful travelers a day, as well as $2 billion in commerce. So we've got to try to facilitate all of that important commerce between the U.S. and Mexico and really abroad, while enforcing it's about 600 laws for 47 different agencies. So that's a huge challenge for us. But really, what's marked the last decade or so is the transnational criminal organizations, it used to be called drug cartels, growing in strength and power and diversifying. They used to just focus on moving narcotics, really marijuana, some cocaine as their cash products. Now with the production of heroin in Mexico, with synthetic opioids coming from China being pressed into pills and coming across, and then capitalizing on the movement of vulnerable people. And our legal framework invites some of the most vulnerable people in our hemisphere to put themselves in the hands of these violent criminal organizations because they think they're going to be successful in coming into the country and staying. And that's an extremely dangerous dynamic. To have violent folks with vulnerable people at the same time as the drugs are coming across. And that's what our agents and officers confront every day. So it's a really challenging mix. What we're trying to do is apply the best set of resources we can against it. We've got tremendous support for investing in additional wall, investing in technology, investing in technology for the ports of entry to be able to put more vehicles through systems where we can identify threats, and also our most valuable resource, our men and women. We're hiring additional officers and Border Patrol agents, trying to find some of the top mission-inspired people in the world when we've got very low unemployment to join us, because it's really an outstanding career. So that support for all of our investments across the board is what we're going to need to continue to enhance security alongside our international and very much our federal, state, and local partnerships.
So you talked about the wall. What impact would it have to build the walls? And I know we're recently building the wall along the southern border, but what would the impact of the wall be on border security?
Yeah, we've submitted a comprehensive plan to Congress called the Border Security Improvement Plan, and one of the key elements of that is additional wall system which can impede and deny access to criminal elements for crossing key areas of our border. You think about an area of our border where we have a dense population environment on both sides of the border. We only have a very short window of time to try to interdict someone who's crossing illegally or bringing a drug load across. If we can bolster our barriers, and this includes replacing very old scrap metal barriers with modern wall system, with cameras, with sensors, we're going to be in a much better position. We're already seeing that. We have 4 active construction zones across the border in El Centro, in San Diego, in El Paso, and that's already demonstrating a difference. It's moving the traffic away from areas where we have a short vanishing time to areas where we have a better tactical advantage. And that's going to continue with the investments in the FY18 bill from Congress, and then hopefully in fiscal year 19 we'll continue to see positive support. So really it's making an impact already.
Thank you. Governor Ducey, Secretary Nielsen announced the deployment of the National Guard. What successes have you seen so far in Arizona, and also what challenges have you experienced?
So the majority of successes that we've seen with the National Guard to the border has been the advancement of additional personnel. And I would say the best news has been the interdiction of illegal drugs, or interdiction of illegal drugs that we've seen at our ports of entry, which is where the majority of these dangerous products come over. But I was just in Cochise County last week with rancher Warner Glenn Kimbrough and his granddaughter Mackenzie. They've been ranching that land for 6 generations. They, along with John Ladd and Scott Arena and Sue Krentz, are very grateful to the administration for what they have seen as what they described as a Trump bump in terms of reduction of illegal activity since 2016. We know there was a surge in February and March of this year, and Secretary Nielsen acted with the National Guard being deployed down there. I know there was an outcry about this, but I don't think people should have been surprised. This has been done in previous administrations. It's just been done later in previous administrations. And the other thing I would say that I hear from the ranchers in the border counties, that this thought of abolishing ICE would be reckless, it would be wrong, it would be irresponsible, and it would be a threat to the state of Arizona.
Thank you. Ron, we've seen a web of these court orders, broken policies basically dictating our current immigration system. Which policy do you believe is hindering the ability to secure our borders and keep America safe?
Well, we've already talked at length about the sanctuary cities thing, and it's our opinion that there should be no jurisdiction in the United States that refuses the command of federal law to take people who are in the country who have crossed the border illegally and committed other crimes to come into custody of ICE. That those detainers wouldn't be honored. It's just not the way we should be doing business in the United States. It's against the interests of public safety in those communities, and it drives more traffic to the border. What we do on the border, and what we do worldwide, is we react to the arrests that CBP makes. And we have to take into custody all the people that they arrest that come into the country illegally. The system has to work. So when we're talking about loopholes and we're talking about changes, we need to have a system in this country that allows for people to have their due process rights when they're arrested, but then they eventually get to be removed from the United States if in fact they don't have a right to be here. Right now that system is not working for us. If you come to the border as a member of a family, you're released into the society and you're set up for a due process right and you're under docket control. You're essentially waiting for a court date that may, in some cases, in a city like Phoenix, may be years away before you can have that due process right. We have to shore up the system so that when people come here illegally, they have a right to their due process, but then are eventually removed from the country. If we could get one thing, it's not just one thing. You got to do all the things that we talked about to shore up this system, but that would make a huge difference for all of us.
So talking about these loopholes, Senator Perdue, obviously the key is wanting to work with Congress to make sure that we're able to get this significant immigration reform, close these loopholes that we need for Department of Homeland Security. Where do you see this playing out in Congress in the next few months?
Well, let me talk about the immigration part of that. You've got security as one issue, you've got the immigration issue as another. And 3 times in the last 11 years, Congress has tried and failed. These are well-meaning women and men trying to solve this issue and have failed because they've tried to take a comprehensive approach. President Trump comes into office and said, let's break this into the legal problem, the temporary work visa problem, and the illegal problem. And so he actually helped put a bill out that we thought would have gone a long way to solve that on the legal side. That was the Secure Act. And honestly, we bring in 1.1 million green card recipients a year. Now, only 70,000 of those are directly related to work. 70,000 is the immediate family, that's the wife and a spouse and children. And about 150,000 are asylum and refugee seekers. And that leaves 800,000 people that are coming to the United States legally every year that are linked to past recipients of worker green cards. 800,000. Now, nobody knows, I don't, and nobody in Congress knows what that level should be, but somebody should undertake an attempt to determine what that is from the standpoint of how many STEM workers we need and so forth, and let's work toward a merit-based immigration system that the president started talking about last year, and like most countries have already moved toward in some degree. The temporary work visa is a big problem. If you're going to grow the economy 3 and 3.5% like we're doing right now, you've got to deal with this. And then the illegal problem has got to be dealt with for all the reasons we said today. I think the Senate right now is developing an appetite, if we can get past this election, to actually finally break this into its components and get a bipartisan solution once and for all on this immigration side that will help these guys dramatically.
So is the president going to get his border wall?
I think he is. I think it's in DHS bill this year. This is not a debate between 0 and 25 billion, which is where it's been over the last year. It's really between 2 billion and 5 billion, which is a very reasonable accommodation by President Trump in my mind. So I'm very hopeful when we get the DHS bill here in a few weeks, and that's why we're here in August, to try to get these bills done. We're going to have defense and HHS next week, which is by far the largest dollar amount of what we're doing. And then right after that, we'll do DHS, and that's where the debate will be. I'm optimistic we'll get it done for him.
Sheriff, talk through about why border security is so important in Arizona.
Well, number one, border security is very important for every community that we represent in this room today. It's all about public safety, that quality of life that we strive for as sheriffs, police chiefs, and those that wear the badge. It's truly what it's all about, is having that peace of mind. And let's not forget the fact that the United States Constitution says we need to have a secure border. I think that's something that we overlook in many conversations. It's so true. Watching this evolution of the border, one thing I can say is this administration, this president, and the many leaders in this room would agree, is the fact is we have the will. That's something that's been lacking for many, many years. A lot of rhetoric talk, yeah, we're going to secure the border. We can go back in time and see that. Yeah, we're going to secure the border. We're going to secure the border. It's the best it's ever been. And the reason it's best, it starts with the President of the United States. It starts with a president that shares a mission supported by the Constitution to share that border. I also want to add a program by the federal government that supports local law enforcement called Stonegarden. Stonegarden is a program that's filtered from our federal partners to sheriffs on the border, our 31 border sheriffs on the southern border. That money also goes to our east coast, our northern border, so it's throughout the country on our national borders. But I'm speaking on the southern border. And that money is allocated to local law enforcement. In my county alone, last year we had 7,000 traffic stops, tons of marijuana seized, other synthetic drugs, meth, you name it, 700 arrests. These are all based on the fact of funding that went to local law enforcement that normally we wouldn't be able to do. So again, this is the best it's been. I don't know how else I can say that. And the reason is, whenever you see something that's working or not working, look at the leader first. In this case, I can say it's working because we have people in the right positions throughout local, state, and federal government, to include our president.
Ron, can you address the visa overstay situation? As we know, I think Senator Perdue, in talking about the fact that we do have those individuals crossing through the border, but a lot of those individuals who just end up staying in the United States.
So that we've worked a lot in the last couple of years with our partners in CBP, the State Department, to understand the number of people who come into the country, and then CBP has got a robust program. I'll let the commissioner talk about the exit, verifying people's exit, so when they do get permission to come from the government into the United States, that we can actually verify that they've departed. But this is a big problem in the sense on the interior side, as it relates to ICE's duties and interior enforcement, is that if you overstay your visa and you're found in the United States, you can be deported, but it's not a federal crime like crossing the border. And so that's among the reforms that we've been urging Congress to adopt. The 9/11 Commission told the government, told all of us, that they wanted an immigration system that had integrity, so that people got permission to come in, and when they left, we knew about it. And so that's part and parcel of what, it's one of those loopholes we'd like to see closed.
And Commissioner, in terms of if we want Congress to pass legislation tomorrow, what are the fixes we want to see? I know they always talk about the floors, they go through all the different components. Can you explain a little bit of what we want to be seeing in terms of legislation?
Sure, and if I could just really quickly comment on the overstay and entry exit, I think it's actually a positive story of progression. Overstays are down 10% in our report this year from the prior year. I think that's a testament to good visa issuance by our friends at the Department of State. CBP is able to now count every visa category, who's in and who's leaving the country, and the air and sea environment getting better in land. We're implementing biometric processes to bolster this. So I think that's a tightening of our security through the ports of entry with overstays in partnership with ICE and state, and it's probably something we should pause and highlight. For us, in terms of the border security draw, the issues that affect us at the border the most are just what Director Vitello highlighted: the ability to have due process, transparent, efficient process for those who are trying to seek protection and access to the country, but being able to remove those who don't have the right to stay in the U.S. And that applies to family units, that applies to unaccompanied children, and that applies to asylum seekers. The system works fairly well for people trying to come into the country who we able to apprehend in terms of single adults. What it's not working for is these other three groups. So from a border security perspective, we could work with Congress to close those loopholes in our legal framework, keep people out of the hands of dangerous criminal organizations. We'd be in a much better position. Then we could focus on the drug smugglers and the actual risk crossing our border.
Governor, what actions can we see the state and local governments do as well to deal with improving the immigration system?
Well, in addition to being supportive of the border wall, or if you want to call it a physical barrier, in the state of Arizona, 2/3 of our border today already has a physical barrier up there. And when you talk to the ranchers, sometimes they'll talk about the Normandy fencing or the post and rail fencing, whatever you need to stop, but you also need surveillance on that wall. It's a technological wall, if you would, and that can be through satellites and, of course, border agents on the ground or new technologies that are there. This is something that has widespread support with our border agents, and I think to separate, like Senator Perdue did, to separate these issues out, to talk about border security, to talk about immigration, to talk about public safety. And one thing we've talked about in Arizona, because this is our neighbor, is the relationship that we have with Mexico. This is our largest trading partner ×4, and we have a very good relationship with the governor of Sonora, Claudia Pavlovich. We've had multiple visits to Mexico City and vice versa. So we build the relationship through trade and trucking and transit and tourism. But when it comes to public safety and law enforcement, we're talking about drug cartels and human traffickers, and that is going to be dealt with differently. That's how I'd like to see our Congress attack this, rather than trying to put it all together. Because I think if you start with the idea of border security, this is something that has broad support across Arizona, and I believe across the country. It's not a partisan issue.
Thank you. Attorney General, give us your perspective in terms of what actions the state and local governments can do. I know you've been involved in a lawsuit in terms of sanctuary cities. If you want to give us some insight on that.
I think one of the words that you've heard, I think every speaker talk about, is cooperation. I can tell you that I've been doing this a long time, and I've never seen a greater collaborative effort between our federal partners, state and local officials than we see right now, and we're seeing a difference in that. You know, one of the things that obviously that we've dealt with historically in law enforcement is that sometimes we live in silos, that we don't share information effectively, we don't always work cooperatively in a way that matters. I don't think that's the case now. And I attribute a lot of that to the fact that this administration has enabled and empowered federal law enforcement to work with us. It's not as if there wasn't a desire in the past, but I think that we are now doing it more effectively. And it's not just in dealing with those who cross the border illegally. It's also what I would sort of describe as illegal e-commerce or commerce, when we're talking about human bodies for trafficking, as well as what we're seeing in illegal drugs. You know, when I think about the fact that this weekend I was in a larger city in North Alabama with over 1,000 people talking about ending the plague of heroin. What that group doesn't recognize is it would be worse if it wasn't for me and the people in this room and the leadership that is on this stage right now. Is it through the efforts of ICE and through those that are patrolling our borders, we are stopping fentanyl, we're stopping heroin coming across, so that when we talk about the loss of life in this country, although it's a staggering number that we've got to deal with more effectively, it would be worse but for what's going on now. And so I think that number one, what we're doing right now is being more effective, but yet we continue to have to be able to push that ball forward. And then what we hope is from this administration, through our partners in Congress, that we find something legislatively to deal with what we're seeing with sanctuary cities. The sheriff, I think, said it remarkably well. The Constitution matters. And for those of us who work on the law enforcement side, we embrace that fact. In fact, it's what we've pledged to be able to uphold. When we have public officials and those who refuse to abide by their constitutional duty, then it's something we have to do something about. We have the ability to be able to do some positive things through our legislation and through particularly our litigation, but yet I think we're looking to Congress as well as the Department of Justice to be able to help us there as well.
Well, we know that securing our nation is dangerous work. We've seen border agents being assaulted, ICE officers being threatened. Tell us about, you know, the dangers that our men and women are facing on the front line.
Yeah, well, for me, seeing our fallen families here with us today, I'm just reminded of the 39 agents and officers we've lost in the line of duty since we were created in 2003, and the sacrifice of those families that they've given in protecting other Americans is just tremendous. And we just try to live up to that example every day, and the gift that they've given us of their family member service. So what we're trying to do is put our men and women in the best position to deal with the threats they face, to have the right training, the right tools, the right support across the technology side, which we've discussed, but the use of force capabilities and training. That's what we need to equip them with. And they're facing a very challenging environment. 125 degrees in the West Desert in Arizona, minus 70 in the North Dakota plains in the winter, very rugged terrain, and we're asking a lot of them, and we're very proud of them.
Governor, explain to us, you deal with law enforcement every day. What are the resources that they need?
Well, of course, they need resources in terms of finances, but I also think our law enforcement officers need resources in terms of support. I mean, it's quite common to see someone in a military uniform and say thank you for your service. I'd like to say thank you to the service of the people inside CBP and ICE. And we talked about the most recent officer in Arizona, Tyler Edenhofer, who lost his life at age 24. I think this is something, these are the people in our local communities, all law enforcement being local, that are on the front lines, risking their lives with no routine stop every day to protect Americans. Very brave men and women. I think that idea of resources, not only financially, but backup from the people inside our communities, that we have their back against the bad guys, the drug cartels, and the human traffickers who play by very different rules, is important that all of them know, and that's what I want to convey today as well.
Ron, you've had a tenured career as a Border Patrol agent. Now you're on the other side of this in ICE. What have you found has been the most surprising difference between the two organizations? Sometimes I think you and Kevin are the same, so this is good to clarify the difference. I'm always like, who am I talking to, Ron or Kevin?
Well, we spent a
He
lot of
knows a
time
lot
together.
about CBP, I can tell you that.
One's got more hair than the other, but that's a different story.
Yeah, so what we know about this, it's less of a surprise and more of a confirmation. These men and women go out there each and every day with the idea of doing the best that they can to protect this country. And sometimes that means they confront some of the most sophisticated threats out there. And so what I've seen in this workforce is their enthusiasm to do more. Them supporting each other, because they recognize that when they go out to work every day, they leave loved ones behind. And so they recognize that the better that they do, the more care that they give each other, the better off the whole organization is going to be. And they're out there each and every day, like the folks here that are in uniform. And they just want to do the right thing. They just want to help people. So sometimes that means resources, as the governor said. Sometimes that means, helping a buddy out. Sometimes that means, making sure you understand what training, what tactics, what techniques you have. And so I found in ICE that they're super dedicated to those same ideals to protect each other all the while making the mission work.
Sheriff, how can we support our men and women on the front line?
Well, when you break it down, a little over every 2 days, a law enforcement hero is killed in this country at the hands of evil. So as the governor said, as Ron said, they need our support. When President Trump came over and was elected, the first thing he came out and stated, I support law enforcement at all levels. There's no bigger fear a sheriff has or a police chief has or anybody's administrative law enforcement folks up here have is to lose one of our men and women out there on the streets to the hands of evil. Whether it be a violent drug dealer, burglar, or whatever it may be, we police a society of instability when it comes to some of our folks that lurk to harm the good people in our communities. And the most important thing I see is having the community support, having our top leader in this country's support. We went through 2 or 3 years of some of the deadliest times for law enforcement in this country, and we've turned that around. You gotta ask the question why. We've turned it around, not that it's not any less dangerous out there, we know it is. These transnational organizations, they work off fear, they work off violence, they work off greed. They don't care about you and I. What they care about is getting their product into our communities and eroding our family values. And so for those that are driven by passion, not a paycheck, to have the support of our president, have the support of our governors, have the support of their law enforcement leaders is most important. That's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you. Our ICE officials, our officers, our Border Patrol agents, they're being scrutinized all the time. How are they able to execute their mission, and what support can Congress give them?
Mercedes, I've been a part of some large private organizations before getting into this job, and I've always learned that it's about the tone at the top. And President Trump has demonstrated, if nothing else, that he's here fighting for ordinary Americans. And that means he's got to fight for the men and women in uniform in our military services, our local law enforcement, as well as our federal agencies. And I can tell you from a personal standpoint, this president takes seriously, I've heard him say it privately, his job is to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. He takes that very seriously, and he does that through an emotional effort to support the men and women in uniform in law enforcement in the United States. I think that goes as far as anything to change the focus and the priority setting of people like me and people you see on this stage. The Attorney General mentioned that it's working better. It is in a year and a half. I can tell you from my perspective because of the integration and because of the tone at the top, and I give President Trump a lot of credit for that.
Attorney General, in terms of what needs to be done to help fix the immigration system, what do you think what recommendations would you give?
Well, unfortunately, I think it's with Congress, because much of what law enforcement is criticized for right now is for enforcing the laws that exist. That's our mission, that's our role, and that's what we're going to continue to do as long as we have the opportunity to be able to wear that badge and to be able to say that we're going to protect and serve. And so I think we are looking to Congress. You know, if we had senators like Senator Perdue, we'd be better off, because I think he has the vision for how this ought to be done. But yet, we need Congress to accept the role that they have, that is to be able to develop the laws and the policies of this country and allow the executive branch to be able to execute it. But what we also need Congress to do is not criticize the good men and women that are in this room for doing their jobs, for having tens of thousands of violent offenders being taken off the street, for tons and tons of illegal substances that have been stopped from crossing our borders. We need to be able to stand behind them, not criticize them for the valuable work that they're doing.
Thank you. Before we wrap up, I just want to give you all about 30 seconds each. I don't know if Senator Perdue can keep it in 30 seconds, but we'll try. I'm kidding, you know. What message do you want to share with the American public about making sure that we support our ICE officers, our Border Patrol agents? What's the final message? How can we help best educate, explain the importance of these organizations and what they're doing to secure our border? We'll start with the Attorney General and come down this way.
I guess I know we have family members here who've lost loved ones. Let me just tell you, they're heroes. And the fact that we're here today to be able to stand before you and say that the work of this organization is so important, know that their lives were not given in vain and that they continue to be remembered. And the best thing that we can do to be able to honor them is to do our jobs and do it well. And we're grateful for the fact that they were willing to do that.
Senator.
30 seconds or less. If there's one message I could tell everybody here and who are viewing this meeting today, and that is this: you are appreciated. You are appreciated. You know, we hope in any job we have that whatever you do, you leave the place better than you saw it when you got there. And you guys are doing that. Men and women who put their lives on the lines every day, you are appreciated.
This great nation was formed based on our Constitution, but also based on the rules of the land. Laws of our land, that they're enforced, and there's consequences for certain actions, and all actions if they break our laws. The recipe of success comes in 3 layers: state, local, and federal. And God bless them all for putting their lives on the line. God bless their families that support us every day to wear the badge. And together, we'll make our communities better.
I'm grateful that the survivors are here joining us today. I would just say that on behalf of the workforce, the men and women of ICE, I'm going to do my best to remind the American people, as has been said here, we all took an oath to the Constitution to protect and defend that. And the First Amendment, the number 1 in the Bill of Rights, we all know about freedom of speech and freedom of religion, and you have a right to petition your government. That's part of the First Amendment, but that doesn't give you the right to harass our employees that are trying to do their job. We're going to stand with them. We're going to remind the American people that ICE does so much more to protect this country than folks know or care to think about, because I think they selectively ignore it for their own purpose. But what folks need to know is that ICE is out there each and every day protecting the communities that they serve in and contributing to the Homeland Security enterprise in a way that is largely unseen, but the people in this room, the people that I care about them and want them to do better.
These are the men and women that keep us safe. And I, for one, want to say thank you. I want you to know how much we appreciate it and how grateful we are as a state and a country. My dad was a police officer, and I believe we owe this respect to everyone who wears the badge inside law enforcement. When Arizona has its own story, from Tyler Edenhofer to Brian Terry. But I would like to say I'm grateful for the service and the sacrifice, and I'm grateful that we have an administration here in Washington, D.C. with President Trump and Secretary Kelly and now Secretary Nielsen that are backing it up. It is felt inside our border counties in Arizona, and it's making a difference for the better across the country.
I would just close by saying when you strip away the politics, you strip away the media attention. At CBP, you're talking about 60,000 men and women, 40,000 plus sworn, that chose a life centered on protecting others. They're the best of us, and that's the most honorable thing that I can think of.
Let's help me in thanking our wonderful panelists here today. Thank you. And I just want to say, I know we're waiting for President Trump to come in and speak shortly, and he is one that I know understands and that all of the ICE officers, our Border Patrol agents, the work that you all do, you all are the unsung heroes. You all keep us safe. You protect our homeland, and we thank you so much. And I know the President appreciates all the great work that the men and women do for our country every single day to keep our communities safe. And with that, I think we're going to take a break, and thank you so much all for being here with us, and we'll see you shortly.
accompanied by the Secretary of Homeland Security.
To adjust it. Well, good afternoon. Thanks everyone for being here. It's my great honor and pleasure to join you at the White House today. And we're here to salute the very brave heroes that work at ICE and CBP, and while we're at it, to thank all law enforcement. So thank you all for being here. As you know, and you heard on the panel before, these men and women have some of the most challenging jobs in law enforcement. Their jobs are truly unlike any other in law enforcement. Their missions are broad, and they are critical to both national security and public safety. Our nation is so fortunate to have so many outstanding officers and agents who have answered the call to serve. Earlier, we had the opportunity to hear from Commissioner McAleenan, Deputy Director Vitello, and some of our government and law enforcement partners. I want to give them a quick round of applause. I think they're over here. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank our other panelists, Governor Ducey, Senator Perdue, Sheriff Daniels, and Attorney General Marshall. Thank you for your support of all of DHS. Thank you. So let's talk quickly a little bit about what CBP and ICE do. They prevent known or suspected terrorists from entering or remaining in our country. They keep dangerous drugs off our streets. They protect us from cybercrime. They prevent counterfeit and dangerous materials from crossing our borders. They dismantle dangerous gangs. They protect intellectual property, prevent human trafficking, protect our children from online predators, and keep some of the most heinous criminals out of our communities. And those are just a few of the things they do. But despite these challenges and dangers, these men and women go to work every day and put themselves in harm's way to keep all of us safe. So today we are saying thank you to these brave officers and agents for the work they do every day to protect the American people. We're proud to recognize those in the room with us today and the tens of thousands around the country and across the globe standing watch and on patrol. I want to thank each of you at CBP and ICE, as well as the more than 50,000 law enforcement officers throughout DHS, for your dedication to our mission. And I want to thank your families. Some of those are here today, because when you serve, they serve. And we want to thank them and let them know that they'll always be part of the DHS family. I'm committed, yes, I'd like to thank the families too. And I do want each of you at CBP and ICE to know that I am as committed to each of you as you are committed to our country. I want to thank the President for his unwavering support of ICE and CBP and all of DHS, and for hosting us at the White House today. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is always my distinct honor to introduce a great friend of DHS and law enforcement across the country, someone who understands their sacrifices and dedication, the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Nielsen, and please be seated, be comfortable. Governor Ducey, Director Vitello, Commissioner McAleenan, distinguished members of Congress, to all the leaders from state and local level, and especially to all of you who wear the uniform and serve on the front lines of law enforcement and homeland security, to your families, and especially to the precious families of our fallen officers. It is my great honor to join you here today as we pay tribute to immigrations and customs enforcement and customs and border protection. You are heroes all. President Trump convened this gathering to pay a debt of gratitude to all of you who have stepped up to secure our borders and enforce our laws. I've seen firsthand your courage and your selflessness. This year, I had the privilege to meet with many ICE and CBP officers at the Hidalgo Port of Entry in McAllen, Texas, at El Centro Station in Imperial, Florida, and even at ICE headquarters not far from here in our nation's capital. I know that you make an extraordinary difference in the life of our nation and for the safety and security of our people. Last year, CBP accounted for more than 310,000 apprehensions at our borders, including more than 8,100 dangerous criminals. Thanks to your efforts, our nation refuses entry to 10 known or suspected terrorists every single day. Job well done. And at a time of unprecedented criticism of ICE, the American people deserve to know that last year alone, ICE arrested more than 127,000 criminal illegal immigrants, including nearly 5,000 gang members, and ICE rescued nearly 1,000 victims of child exploitation from their captors. To all the members of law enforcement here, be confident that you have the support of the overwhelming majority of the American people, and also be confident in this. You have a champion in President Donald Trump. Working with members of Congress, this president has enacted the largest increase in border security funding in nearly 10 years. He's increased funding for ICE and CBP by nearly $3 billion. And we've already started to build that wall on the southern border. As we speak, President Trump is working with the Congress to provide additional funding and to close dangerous loopholes that too often serve as a magnet of vulnerable families, drawing them to our southern border. And as President Trump will again make clear today, in this White House, we are with you. We will never stop fighting to give you the resources and the respect that you deserve. So to the heroes of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement and Customs and Border Protection, you have our support and our gratitude. You embody the best of America, and you inspire the American people every day. And as you continue your courageous service, know also, not only do you have our support and our gratitude, but you have our prayers. And I know the prayers of the American people, that as you secure our borders and enforce our laws, we'll continue to pray that no harm will ever overtake you, that he will guard you in all your ways. With your continued dedication and service, with the support of these members of Congress, with leaders at the state and local level, and with President Donald Trump in the White House, I know we will make America safe again, and we'll have all of you to thank. So thank you. God bless you. And God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Wow. Thank you very much. That's really for ICE, I have to tell you. That's not for me. That's for ICE. Please sit down. We're here today to salute the incredibly brave patriots who keep America safe, the heroes of ICE and CBC. To everyone here today from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Customs and Border Protection, I want to let you know that we love you, we support you, we will always have your back, and I think you know that. I want to thank a true and loyal friend of ICE and CBC, our wonderful Vice President, Mike Pence. Thank you, Mike. Beautiful. Thank you, Mike. Stand up, Mike. Stand up. Great, Mike. Great job. I want to share my profound appreciation for our wonderful Secretary of Homeland Security, Kirstjen Nielsen. Where's Kirstjen? Kirstjen, thank you. Thank you. Great job. You're doing a great job. Not easy. If we got some good immigration laws, she'd really set standard, but we've already broken every record in the book, haven't we? So thank you very much, Kirstjen. Everyone here today understands a vital truth that America is a land of opportunity because we are a nation of laws. For America to be a strong nation, we must have strong borders. Helping to lead that effort are great patriots in the audience today, including our new acting director of ICE, Ron Vitello. Where's Ron? Ron, thank you, Ron. Stand up, Ron. Great job. Good. Thank you, Ron. And the Commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Kevin McAleen. Kevin, thank you. The new chief of the U.S. Border Patrol, the first woman ever to hold the job, Carla Provost. Carla, thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations, Carla. And our new acting deputy director of ICE, Matt Albence. Where's Matt? Matt, thank you, Matt. Thank you. We're also grateful to be joined today by a really wonderful friend of mine and a tremendous senator, and that's David Perdue. David, come on, David. You've done a great job, David. We really appreciate it. People of Georgia really appreciate it, that I can tell you. Thank you very much. Many state and local partners are represented in the audience, including Arizona Governor Doug Ducey. Doug, thank you, Doug, for being here. Thank you, Doug. Great job you're doing. A wonderful man, Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall. Steve, thank you very much. Thank you. Friend of mine, South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson, and sheriffs from all around the country. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. Sheriffs, thank you. Say hello to your father. Most importantly, let me extend my gratitude to every law enforcement professional representing ICE and CBC, enforcement and removal operations, Homeland Security investigations, ICE prosecutors, the Office of Field Operations, Air and Marine Operations, and Border Patrol. You're incredible people. You're doing an unbelievable job. You're not appreciated enough, but I'll tell you what, 99%, we get it. We really get it. We love you. We'll always be with you. We'll never let you down. Thank you very much for being here, too. Over the last year, some incredible numbers, ICE and CBC seized more than 2.8 million pounds of illicit and deadly narcotics. A lot of people would have died. In the interior of our country, ICE officers arrested over 127,000 criminal aliens. And these are tough ones too, aren't they, fellas, right? These were tough ones, including those charged or convicted of 48,000 assaults, 12,000 sex crimes, and 1,800 homicides. We need strong people to handle those people. We don't play games, right? We don't play games. Every day, on average, CBC prevents 10 known or suspected terrorists from entering the United States. What a job you've done. To protect our nation from smuggling, trafficking, drugs, crime, the men and women of DHS are building the border wall as we sit, and the wall is getting longer and taller and stronger each and every day. We've spent and will soon be spending about $3.2 billion, and we're looking for about $5 billion for this next coming year. We're building the wall step by step, and it's not easy because we have a little opposition called the Democrats. I guess they just don't mind crime. They don't mind crime. It's pretty sad. Just this past month, CBC officers at a single port of entry discovered more than 30,000 fentanyl pills, 62 pounds of meth, that's a lot, and 11 pounds of heroin. 2 of those officers are here, Alfredo Olfato and David Sciordono. Where are they? Where are they? They're right here. Stand up, please. And Alfredo, David, thank you for the amazing job you've done. We all appreciate it. Everybody in this room, everybody in this country. Just over a week ago, a human smuggler was arrested in Laredo for locking, and really locking, a horrible 78 illegal aliens inside of a trailer. The Border Patrol agent who caught the accused and likely really saved many lives, he's here with us. And Adrian, where's Adrian? Adrian's here with us. Thank you, Adrian. Great job. Thank you. It's a lot of lives. That's great. Adrian, come here. I want to ask you a question. So, how did you come here? You're not nervous, right? Speaks perfect English. Come here. I want to ask you about that. 78 lives. You saved 78 people. So, how did you feel that there were people in that trailer? There's a lot of trailers around. Please. He didn't know he was going to do this, but it's just of interest.
First and foremost, thank you for allowing me to come from Laredo. On behalf of Border Patrol, thank you as well. It all started that day. I had a canine alert. The vehicle was referred to secondary, and once the vehicle was referred to secondary, or the truck trailer, I'm sorry, was referred to secondary, the vehicle proceeded to elude and flee the checkpoint. Shortly after, the vehicle was stopped at the approximately 30-mile marker, which is a mile north of the checkpoint. Subsequently, I went out there and I ran the dog, conducted a non-intrusive search of the vehicle, of the truck trailer, and once again, the canine alerted. And subsequently, I opened the little latch of the back of the truck trailer and revealed a lot of subjects. I quickly asked for backup, and backup got there, and the subjects were transported back to back to the checkpoint, and all of them were in good health.
Fantastic. What a good job he did. What a good job. Now, you know, tomorrow he's like that so much. He didn't know he was going to do it. Tomorrow he will be announcing that he's running for office. Good job. 78 people saved. Thank you very much, Adrian. Last month, under Operation Eagle Shield, right here in the D.C. area, ICE officers arrested 132 illegal aliens, including criminal aliens charged or convicted of rape, battery, and strangulation. Among those arrested was a high-ranking MS-13 gang member who has 4 prior convictions for rape and federal warrant for felony assault with a deadly weapon. Bad, bad person. Enforcement and removal officers Daniel Nichols and Mark Colazzo, together with Nancy Roto, each played a crucial role, and I want to thank you, officers, and I believe you're here. Where are you? Please, stand up. Stand up. Great job. You did a great job right here. Nancy, you want to say something? Come on up here, the 3 of you. I find listening to these folks, they're very brave. I find them a lot more interesting than listening to the president. Come on up here. Come on up.
President. Thank you. It's an honor working for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. We're here to serve and protect our nation, and we're proud to do it every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You want to say? Go ahead.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark Colazzo. I work for the Washington Field Office, and just as what we do is making everyone a safe and protected place for everybody. That's what my job is, and I appreciate everyone coming out here and commemorating and giving thanks. Thank you.
It's great people, brave people. ICE's Operation Matador recently led to the arrest of 325 members of MS-13, a vicious, violent, horrible gang, horrible group of people. And we're throwing them the hell out of our country so fast your head would spin, but too many were allowed in. Special Agent Derek Bergman, who helped lead the operation, is here with us today. And Derek, where are you? I want you to, you're a brave looking guy. Come here, Derek, fast. Hurry up, Derek. Come on, please.
Well, I wasn't expecting this, but I guess I would say that, at Operation Matador, we had a lot of violence on Long Island and in the New York area. So the response started really with the leadership that supported us and was able to allow us to go out there and do what we had to do. And it really speaks to the collaborative effort that we had with our state and local partners and other federal agencies, that everybody was able to get together and assist each other in different facets of the operation. And hopefully we were able to make a difference in the communities, because that's ultimately why we were doing it, was to make those neighborhoods safe for the people that inhabit them. So hopefully we're able to do that.
That's a beautiful job.
And I know Long Island very well, and I can tell you that when I hear some of the stories, I grew up there essentially, very near, and I know every one of the towns. And to hear some of the stories going on with MS-13, you wouldn't believe it. And they're doing an incredible job. They're actually liberating towns. Think of it. We're talking about liberating towns where you'd walk down the street at night 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you wouldn't even think about it. People didn't lock their doors. And today we're liberating towns, and this is what we have coming in, but we're getting them out. We're also, thank you. It hits home when you know the towns. It hits home when you grew up there. That's where it really hits, when you can't even believe it's happening. We're also deeply honored to be joined today by family members of 4 fallen Border Patrol agents: Luis Aguilar, Nicholas Ivey, Rogelio Martinez, and Brian Terry. And I just met the folks and the people and the children, and these are incredible people. Could I ask you to stand, please? What incredible people. Incredible. Just took pictures backstage, and there's some wonderful people looking down on all of us today. You know that, right? Great people looking down on us, and they're very happy and proud of you. Our gratitude to all of you and the memories of your loved ones, because they will be honored and cherished forever in our hearts, in all of our hearts, everybody in this room. Thank you very much. Today I sent a letter to state and local leaders across our nation asking them to pledge their full support and cooperation with the officers and agents of ICE and CBC. Sadly, in recent months, incredibly, I have to say, incredibly, a coalition of open borders, extremists, and to me that means crime, people that don't mind crime. They mind it when it happens to them. They don't mind it when they have to watch it on television, have waged an unprecedented assault on American law enforcement, our greatest people, threatening ICE and Border Patrol for performing their duties admirably, and for defending our country from horrible people and horrible, horrible events and crimes. In major cities across the nation, these open border radicals have blocked access to ICE buildings, to face public property, and threatened public safety. And what you hear in the newspapers and on the news is nothing compared to the way it really is. And we're stopping it very, very strongly. But that you have to go through what you're going through, and for you having to be demeaned by people that have no idea what strength is really very sad, and we fight it very hard. And I can tell you, all of these people right here and all of the people in this room, we will never let you down. And I will also say, you're talking about the vast majority. I don't mean like 51%. I mean like 88%, 93%. I've seen numbers. They're all with you. It's just a small group that gets a lot of publicity because they have no courage, they have no guts. They just have big, loud mouths. And we don't want to put up with that. And I just want you to know that you're loved. You're loved and you're respected as much as anybody in this country is respected. Last month, the mayor of Portland, Oregon, shamefully ordered local police to stand down, leaving federal law enforcement officers to face an angry mob of violent people. Leading members of the Democrat Party have even launched a campaign to abolish ICE. In other words, they want to abolish America's borders. And when you think about it, I'm working on it all the time. They come in, we're protecting borders of other countries, but we don't protect our own borders. How about that? Spending billions and billions of dollars in other countries, in some cases places we shouldn't be, to protect their borders, but we don't protect our own border. We condemn these shameful attacks on our great law enforcement. Any politician who puts criminal aliens before American citizens should find a new line of work, because it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And any politicians that get up and say that our country was never great, you heard that. I think that's the end of that career. Congressional Democrats have opposed Kate's Law, opposed legislation to crack down on MS-13 thugs, and supported deadly sanctuary cities, which are a disaster and which are becoming, on a weekly basis, more and more unpopular with the public. A lot has happened in the last 2 years. Last month, House Democrats even boycotted a resolution supporting our brave ICE officers and agents. But I will say this, the Republicans were with you all the way, all the way. And we won. We won. This new wave of anti-borders, anti-law enforcement extremism, and shameful, dangerous, it's horrible in every way, and it's going to stop. It's going to stop right now. It's going to stop today. We slowed it down, now we're stopping it. We will never surrender our nation to the forces of anarchy and chaos and crime. We will not allow our communities to be consumed by deadly poisons and violent predators. The poisons are flowing across our border, and we're hitting it from every angle. But we need new laws. We need border laws. We need immigration laws. We need them fast. We're going to get them. Hopefully the midterms will help toward that end. I think we're going to do very well in the midterms, and this is one of the very big reasons. The fact is, people respect law and order, and they love our law enforcement. And I think we're going to have much more of a red wave than what you're going to see as a phony blue wave. Blue wave means crime. It means open borders. Not good. We will not stand for the vile smears, the hateful attacks, and the vicious assaults on the courageous men and women of ICE and Border Patrol and law enforcement. We will protect those who protect us. The extremists who attack ICE and CBC
like to portray themselves as champions of social justice. They are not. But their radical policies are the ultimate injustice, hurting innocent Americans and spilling innocent blood. People are dying because of their either lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, or just plain stupidity. Last year alone, sanctuary jurisdictions and local communities unleashed nearly 8,000 criminal aliens onto our streets. Our laws are no good. Our immigration laws are broken. They've been broken for many years, and the world is laughing at us. The world is laughing at the stupidity of what we have done with immigration. But we're getting it changed, and it's actually taking place much more so and much quicker, I think, than anybody understands, because people really now understand the problem. We're pushing very, very hard. In California, sanctuary policy has released a domestic abuser